The glass slipped from Amara's hand and shattered across the marble floor, just as the screaming started. She didn't even have time to grab a broom. The sound cut through the entire restaurant, sharp, entitled, the kind of voice that expected the world to stop moving whenever it opened its mouth. Amara looked up from behind the service counter and saw her, a woman in her 40s, designer dress, perfect hair, standing over a small table by the window with her arms crossed like a prosecutor, about to deliver a verdict. The woman sitting at the table, the one being screamed at, hadn't moved. She sat with both hands wrapped around a cup of tea, her eyes cast down, her shoulders folded inward, like she was trying to disappear. She was old, slight, dressed in a plain gray coat that had seen too many winters, and she was completely, terribly alone. "I reserved this table 3 days ago." The woman in the designer dress wasn't even trying to keep her voice down. "Do you understand what reserved means? Or is that word too complicated?" The old woman nodded quietly. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I can move." "Of course you can move. You should have never sat here in the first place." The socialite looked her up and down with open contempt. "Look at you. What are you even doing in a place like this? Can you even afford the tea?" The restaurant went silent. Not the polite, uncomfortable kind of silence. The kind that meant everyone heard, everyone saw, and nobody was going to do a single thing about it. 30 people, tables full of well-dressed customers, and every single one of them looked away, down at their plates, at their phones, anywhere but at the small woman by the window, whose hands had begun to tremble around her cup. Amara felt the heat rise from her chest to her throat. She had been in Seoul for 14 months. She had come to teach English, stayed because she loved it, and taken this job at Hangang Bistro to cover rent while she figured out what came next. She knew exactly what it felt like to walk into a room and have someone look at you like you didn't belong. She knew it better than most people in this restaurant ever would. Her manager, Mr. O, appeared at her shoulder. He'd seen the whole thing. He straightened his tie, glanced toward the socialite's table, because that woman spent money here, real money, every week, and turned to Amara with an expression she had already learned to recognize. "Don't. Just don't. Let it go." Amara set down the tray in her hands. She walked across the restaurant floor with her heart hammering so loud she was certain people could hear it. She moved past 3 empty chairs, past a table of businessmen pretending to study their menus, past the hostess who whispered her name like a warning, Amara, and she stopped right beside the old woman's table. She turned to face the socialite directly, squared her shoulders, and spoke. "She has every right to be here." The socialite blinked. Whatever she had expected, apology, deference, invisible compliance. It wasn't this. It wasn't a 26-year-old black waitress from Atlanta standing between her and the person she was humiliating with absolutely no fear in her eyes. "Excuse me?" the woman said, her voice dropping dangerously. "This table wasn't marked reserved. She sat down legally. She ordered. And she hasn't done a single thing to you." Amara kept her voice even, calm, surgical. "If someone needs to find another table, it won't be her." Someone at a nearby table raised their phone. Then another person. Then another. The socialite's face turned a color that had no flattering name. "Do you know who I am? Do you have any idea? I know that you're upsetting every other guest in this restaurant," Amara said, "and I know that this woman hasn't raised her voice once. I want to speak to your manager. Right now." Mr. O was already there. He materialized beside Amara, with the strained smile of a man calculating losses in real time. He looked at the socialite. He looked at Amara. He made his decision in about half a second. "Miss Johnson," he said quietly, "please apologize." Amara turned to look at him. For what? For the disruption. He lowered his voice further, for making this worse than it needs to be. "I didn't make anything. I just stopped something." Amara. His voice had an edge now, a final kind of edge. "Apologize, or I cannot keep you on staff." The socialite watched this exchange with the satisfied expression of someone watching a game they had already won. The old woman at the table had her eyes closed. Her lips were pressed together. Her knuckles were white around the teacup. Amara thought about her rent. She thought about the $300 left in her account. She thought about the email from her mother last week, asking if she was okay, really okay, because she sounded tired. She thought about all of it. And then she looked at the old woman sitting there alone, absorbing humiliation in silence, because no one had ever taught the world that she mattered. "No," Amara said. Mr. O exhaled slowly. "Then I need you to collect your things." The restaurant was completely still. Someone was still recording. The socialite smoothed her dress, reclaimed her composure, and gestured imperiously toward the table as though the last 5 minutes had simply been an inconvenience now resolved. Security arrived within minutes. 2 men in dark jackets appeared at Amara's sides. Not rough, not aggressive, but immovable. She gathered her bag from behind the counter. She pulled on her coat. She didn't cry, though her eyes burned. She walked toward the door with her back straight and her chin level because she refused to let this restaurant see her broken. She was almost at the exit when she felt a hand on her arm. Gentle, paper thin. She turned. The old woman was standing. She had left her table, left her tea, and crossed the entire restaurant floor to reach her. Up close, Amara noticed things she hadn't from a distance. The deep lines around her eyes, the quiet dignity in her posture, the way she held herself like someone who had survived things that would break most people. Her eyes were wet. "Thank you," the woman said. Her Korean was soft, deliberate. "Thank you for treating me like a human being." Amara felt something crack open in her chest. She reached out and covered the old woman's hand with both of hers. "You didn't deserve any of that," she said. "Not 1 second of it." The woman nodded, squeezed her hand, and Amara walked out into the gray Seoul afternoon, jobless, chest aching, and still somehow, impossibly, not regretting a single word she had said. She didn't know the woman's name. She didn't know anything about her. She thought, in the way you think about strangers you'll never see again, that she hoped the old woman had someone to go home to, someone who made her feel like she mattered. She had absolutely no idea. The car that collected Mrs. Han Sun-hee from the restaurant was not the kind of car people noticed. Matte black, no plates visible, windows so deeply tinted they seemed to absorb light rather than filter it. 2 men rode in front, 2 rode behind. The driver didn't speak. He didn't need to. He had been doing this for 11 years. The house Mrs. Han returned to was not a house in any ordinary sense of the word. It sat behind 3 layers of gates in a district of Seoul where the streets had no public names on any map. When the convoy turned into the driveway, 12 men appeared from the darkness with the silent coordination of people who had rehearsed this moment 10,000 times. They bowed as the car stopped. Not the polite, perfunctory bow of service staff. The deep, formal bow of men who understood exactly who was inside the vehicle. Mrs. Han walked through the front doors without acknowledging any of them. This was not coldness. It was simply the way of a woman who had grown accustomed, over decades, to a life she had never asked for and had learned to move through with grace. She was sitting in the main room, still in her gray coat, still holding the faint warmth of the tea she had not finished, when she heard the sound she recognized better than anything else in this world. The particular weight of footsteps she had known since they were small enough to fit in the palm of her hand. Kang Min-jae filled the doorway the way weather fills a room. He was not a large man in the way people expected powerful men to be large. He was lean, composed, immaculately dressed, with the particular stillness of someone who had learned long ago that the loudest person in a room is almost never the most dangerous one. He was 38 years old, and he had not smiled in a way that reached his eyes in longer than either of them could remember. He saw his mother's face immediately. He crossed the room in 4 steps, crouched in front of her chair, and studied her with the focused intensity of a man who had built an empire on noticing what others missed. "Who?" he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Hurt you?" Mrs. Han shook her head. "It was nothing. Your eyes are swollen." "Min-jae, mother." He didn't raise his voice. He never needed to. "Tell me." She told him. All of it. The table, the woman in the designer dress, the things that had been said, the restaurant full of people who had looked away. And then, the part that made her voice go soft and unsteady. the young waitress who hadn't. Min Jae listened without moving. His expression didn't change. It had long since been trained out of him, that visible response to feeling. But something shifted in the room anyway. Something that made the two men standing at the far wall take a single, instinctive step backward. When his mother finished, he stood slowly. He straightened his jacket. He looked at the man nearest the door. "I want everything from that restaurant in the last 4 hours," he said. "Security footage, any recordings that have been posted online, names of every staff member on shift." He paused. "And I want to know the name of the woman in the gray coat." By midnight, Min Jae had watched the videos 7 times. His team had pulled 3 separate recordings posted to social media, the restaurant's internal security feed, and the audio from 2 phones left on nearby tables. He had watched the socialite's performance with the flat, clinical attention he brought to everything. He had noted the manager's cowardice with the same dispassion. He had watched his mother sit alone in a room full of people and absorb their collective indifference, like she had done it before. Like she expected nothing better, and that was the thing that cost him the most to look at directly. Then he watched the waitress. He watched her set down the tray. He watched her cross the floor. He watched the exact moment she made the decision, visible in the half-second pause before she moved. The brief, private calculation of someone weighing what it would cost against whether she could live with the alternative. He watched her stand in front of his mother and speak in a voice that didn't shake. He watched her refuse. He watched her get fired and walk out with her back straight. He watched his mother cross a restaurant to reach her before she disappeared through the door. He watched it all 3 more times. Then he looked at the file his team had assembled. Amara Johnson, 26, originally from Atlanta, Georgia, English teacher turned waitress, single, no family in Korea, 14 months in Seoul. Current account balance, his man had been thorough, was the kind of number that made something tighten briefly in Min Jae's chest. She had lost her job to protect a woman she didn't know. She had lost her only source of income in a foreign country. And she had walked out of that restaurant looking like she would make the exact same choice again tomorrow. He set the file down. He picked up his phone. "Find me the socialite's husband," he said to the man who answered. "Pull everything. The construction contracts in Mapo, the city council arrangement, the permit irregularities from 2021. A pause. "Yes, all of it." He ended the call. Then he looked back at the frozen image on his screen. Amara Johnson, standing between his mother and a woman twice her social standing, with nothing but her own conviction to protect her. For the first time in a very long time, Kang Min Jae smiled. It didn't last long. Now, if you're finding this story gripping, and we're just getting to the part where everything breaks open, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Stories like this drop every week, and you don't want to miss what comes next. Now let's get back to it. The week that followed was the longest of Amara's life. She filed for unemployment assistance she wasn't sure she qualified for as a foreigner. She sent 43 job applications across Seoul. Restaurants, tutoring centers, language schools, anything. She got 6 replies, 3 rejections, 2 interviews that led nowhere, 1 silence that felt worse than rejection, because at least rejection was an answer. She sat in her apartment on the 4th night, eating instant noodles she'd rationed since Tuesday, and thought about calling her mother. She picked up her phone, put it back down. Her mother would worry. Her mother would say, "Come home." And Amara wasn't ready to admit that standing up for a stranger had cost her everything, because admitting that meant the next time she saw something wrong happen in front of her, she might hesitate. She might stay in her lane. She might become one of the 30 people sitting at their tables looking away. She couldn't be that. She didn't know how. On the 7th morning, she woke to the sound of something she had never heard outside her window before. Engines. Multiple engines. Idling in the kind of controlled, synchronized way that meant discipline, not coincidence. She pulled her curtain aside and looked down at the street. 4 black vehicles sat below her building. Men in dark suits stood beside them. One of them looked up, met her eyes through the window, and bowed. Amara's first coherent thought was that she was in trouble. Her second thought was that she had no idea what kind. Her third thought, the one that steadied her, was that she had nothing to be ashamed of. and whatever this was, she would face it the same way she had faced everything else. She came downstairs in her good coat, the one she wore to interviews, because if she was going to be collected by men in black suits, she was at least going to look like herself. They didn't tell her where they were going. She asked twice and got 2 polite non-answers, so she stopped asking. The city moved past the tinted windows. They crossed into Gangnam, then past it, into a district she didn't recognize, and then through a gate that opened before the lead car had fully stopped, into a courtyard in front of a building that wore its money quietly, the way truly serious money always did. Inside, she was led through a corridor into a room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a sculpted garden, and there, sitting in a chair with a cup of tea, wearing the same plain gray coat, was Mrs. Han. She rose when Amara entered. She smiled the way people smile when they have been waiting for something they weren't sure would arrive. "You came," she said softly. "I didn't really feel like I had a choice," Amara admitted, "but also, yes, I'm glad I came." Mrs. Han's smile widened by a fraction. Then she stepped aside. The man who had been standing near the window, still enough that Amara had registered him as furniture, turned around. He was not what she expected. She didn't know exactly what she had expected. Something louder, probably. Something with harder edges. But Kang Min-jae looked at her with dark, precise eyes and an expression that gave away nothing. And the air in the room changed so fundamentally that Amara understood immediately, on a level below conscious thought, exactly who she was standing in front of. "My son," Mrs. Han said quietly. "Min-jae." The silence stretched. Amara became aware of men at the periphery of the room, still and watchful. She became aware of the weight of what she didn't know about this family, this building, what lived behind the legitimate surface of whatever empire this was. She became aware that she was a 26-year-old waitress from Atlanta, standing in a room where the air itself seemed to follow this man's instructions. And then Kang Min-jae bowed. Not a small bow, not a polite social gesture, a full, deliberate bow, the kind that cost something, from a man whose posture said he gave nothing away for free. Amara stood very still. "You protected my mother," he said. His English was precise, accented, unhurried. "When she was alone, when everyone with more to lose than you chose to do nothing, you protected her, and you paid for it." He straightened, looked at her directly. "I don't take that lightly. I didn't do it for a reward," Amara said. Her voice was steady, which surprised her. "I know," he said. "That's why I'm offering one." He gestured toward the low table between them. A folder sat on it, clean and centered. Amara approached slowly, opened it. Inside was a job offer. Director of Community Outreach for the Han Sun-hee Foundation, a charitable organization, she learned in the following minutes, that had been quietly funding elderly care programs across Seoul for 6 years. Salary, housing allowance, benefits, numbers that made her breath catch. "The foundation works," Min-jae said. "It simply needs someone who understands what it means to see an elderly person sitting alone in a room full of people who have decided she doesn't matter." He paused. "My mother believes you understand that. I've watched enough to agree with her." Amara looked at Mrs. Han. The old woman was watching her with those quiet, deep eyes, waiting, not pushing. Amara thought about the instant noodles. She thought about the 43 applications. She thought about every moment in the last 14 months when she had made a decision nobody had asked her to make, and paid the price for it with a kind of loneliness that didn't have a clean name. She thought about a small woman in a gray coat, reaching out across a restaurant floor to touch her hand. She pressed her lips together, nodded once, and because she was Amara Johnson and she had been raised by a woman who told her that dignity was the one thing nobody could take if you didn't hand it over first, she didn't let herself cry until she turned slightly toward the window, and the garden, and the thin winter light falling through the glass. "Okay," she said quietly. "Yes." 6 months passed the way good months do, full enough that looking back felt like looking at a different life. Amara sat in the main hall of the Seocho Elderly Community Center on a Thursday afternoon, watching 12 women in their 70s learn how to use video calling on their phones. It had been her idea. The program now ran in 7 centers across Seoul, and had a waiting list. She had argued for the funding, written the proposal herself, presented it to the board with the same steady voice she had once used to tell a socialite that an old woman had every right to be in a restaurant. The board had approved it in under 10 minutes. Mrs. Han visited every Thursday. She sat in the corner with her tea and watched, and sometimes she joined in, and sometimes she simply watched Amara move through the room, touching shoulders, translating jokes, coaxing laughter out of people who had spent years being invisible, with the particular expression of someone watching a thing they chose correctly. Min-jae came less often. He was not a man who announced his presence, but Amara had learned to recognize the faint shift in the staff's posture when his car pulled up outside, the way conversations modulated slightly, the room quietly recalibrating around his gravity. He would stand in the back, watch for 20 minutes, leave without drawing attention. Once, she caught him watching his mother laugh at something one of the older women had said, and his face in that unguarded moment held something she had never seen there before. Something young, something undefended, something that had nothing to do with power. She looked away. It felt too private to witness. And the socialite? Ji-won spent 3 months watching her husband's business interests quietly collapse before she understood what was happening. By then, the men who might have helped her were occupied with their own suddenly complicated situations. She never connected it to a restaurant table, a gray coat, and a waitress from Atlanta. She wouldn't have believed it anyway. Some lessons arrive too late to be useful. On the last Thursday of the month, Amara walked out of the community center beside Mrs. Han into the cold evening air. The old woman pulled her coat tighter and looked up at the sky, the way old people look at the sky, like it's showing them something the young haven't learned to read yet. "Do you miss Atlanta?" she asked. Amara considered this honestly. "Sometimes. I miss my mother's cooking. I miss the way the heat feels in July." She paused. "But I think I was always supposed to end up somewhere that needed me. I just didn't know it would be this far from home." Mrs. Han made a small sound that was almost a laugh. She reached out and took Amara's hand, the same way she had reached out in a restaurant doorway 6 months ago. Unhurried, certain, like she had always known, this was where the gesture would eventually lead. "The world changes," the old woman said, "because of people brave enough to stand up when everyone else sits down." Amara looked at her. The streetlights were coming on. Seoul was waking up into its evening self, loud and glittering and indifferent to everyone, until it suddenly wasn't. "I just did what was right," Amara said. Mrs. Han squeezed her hand. "Yes," she said simply, "you did." And that is the kind of story that reminds you what human beings are capable of when they choose courage over comfort. If this moved you, if you felt something in that restaurant scene, in that bow, in that small woman crossing a room to say thank you, let me know in the comments. Tell me what moment hit you hardest. Tell me if you would have stood up. I genuinely want to know. If you're new here, subscribe and hit the bell. This channel is built for people who believe stories matter. And if you've been here a while, share this one. Put it in front of someone who needs to hear it today. See you in the next story.